Hi, I'm Ranger Meg with Tennessee State Parks. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Backyard Botany, a video series in which we discover those everyday plants that may be in your own backyard and discuss what makes these common plants so uncommonly interesting. Today we'll be looking at a plant that I'm sure you've seen numerous times. You know, it's in your yard, it's along roadsides, it's along sidewalks, you've seen it at the local park. You've probably walked right by this plant or even right over it and maybe never noticed it, or maybe noticed it and just never known its name or known anything about it. Today's plant that we're going to talk about is Plantago Major, commonly known as broadleaf plantain or common plantain or greater plantain. See, it's called plantain because of its broad, flat, oval-shaped leaves that were thought to resemble like the broad, flat sole of your foot. So if you think of like plantain and the word origin, it's similar to like when you get warts on your foot, it's plantar warts, or when the bottom of your foot is sore, the sole of your foot is sore, it's plantar fasciitis. This is not to be confused with the fruit plantain that you might find in like the Caribbean. It looks kind of like a banana and it's a starchy fruit. These are the weeds, and you might also hear it called plantain weed. And an interesting coincidence with the fact that the name plantain has to do with the sole of your foot, one of the Native American names for this plant was actually white man's or Englishman's footprint. You see, broadleaf plantain, it's not native to North America. It was brought here by the early European colonists, and it spread rapidly after they arrived and brought it with them. The Native Americans actually said that anywhere the European colonists walked, they left this plant behind as a footprint. Today, this plant is found all over North America, and it's because broadleaf plantain, it grows so well in disturbed and compacted soils, and it spreads really rapidly by its numerous seeds. See, one broadleaf plantain plant can produce over 14,000 seeds per year. You can easily recognize common plantain by these broad oval-shaped leaves. The leaves can be 2 to 8 inches long, and they're going to have these very prominent parallel veins running through them. See these lines that run from the tips of the leaves to the stem, and they're parallel to each other and they're parallel to the leaf edge. Those are those prominent parallel leaf veins that we're talking about. These leaves also grow in what's known in botany as a basal rosette pattern, and again that just means they're growing in a circular pattern here kind of low to the ground, which helps make them tolerant of mowing. They've got a kind of a thick leathery leaf, and they're very hardy, they're very tolerant of being walked on and trampled. So again, it's no wonder that they're so common underfoot. From June to September, which is now, you're going to see these long stalks grow up from the center of that basal rosette, and this is where the common plantain flowers and also goes to seed. So remember, I said each plant can produce up to 14,000 seeds per year. These seeds are spread very easily by wind, by animals, by birds, by human activity. Pretty much every time you mow or weed eat, you're spreading these seeds. Something interesting about the leaf as well that I forgot to mention is that, here I've got one picked right here, is that the petiole, or the leaf stalk, this piece right here, it's always nearly just as long as the leaf itself. And it's very fibrous. It's got these stringy-like veins. I don't know if you can see the string coming out here. I'll try to get it in focus. Right here. And supposedly, I've read that you can tear these
stalks apart and remove these strings inside, and you could use them by braiding them together and make like a cord or a fishing line in like a survival situation. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know, it seems like it'd be pretty tedious to try to gather enough to braid together to make cord, but you never know, it's pretty stout stuff.
However, even if it's not so good for making fishing line or braiding together for cord, it is still a very useful plant because it's both edible and medicinal. See, all parts of the common plantain are edible. The leaves are edible, the roots are edible, the stems, the seeds. It's all edible and actually quite nutritious. See, plantain is very high in vitamins like vitamin A and minerals like iron and calcium. Also a very good source of fiber and full of phytochemicals and antioxidants. So the best way to eat some edible common plantain would be to pick the leaves when they're young and tender in the spring. Then you can just toss them in a salad and eat them like a salad green. As the plant gets bigger and older, the leaves are going to get tougher. Remember, those parallel veins have those thick fibers in it, and that's going to make it kind of tough and very fibrous. They can also get more bitter as they get older. So the best way to eat the bigger leaves, the older leaves later in the season, would be to collect them and cook them first, boil them, pour off the water, and then you could saute them or fry them and eat them that way. And that's going to make them a little more tender. You could also, you might want to think about chopping out the stems or chopping out those veins to make them less tough. The seeds are edible. However, collecting the seeds can be a little tricky because they're so tiny that you're probably not going to get more than just a small handful. It would take a long time to collect quite a few, but you can dry the seeds, you can grind them up and put them in baked goods or add them to flour as a flour extender. Again, they're very high in fiber and actually are thought to be useful in digestion and for lowering cholesterol for that reason. Now, because broadleaf plantain, common plantain, greater plantain, plantain the weed, because it is so full of phytochemicals and antioxidants, it actually has some anti-inflammatory and antiseptic properties that make it a great medicinal plant as well. One of the most common folk remedies for plantain is to make a poultice that you could use topically on your skin in the event that you had insect bites or stings or a rash or irritation that was swelling and itchy. It has pain relieving properties as well. Now, making this poultice could be as simple as picking a leaf and chewing it up and then spitting it out in your hands and rubbing it on the insect bite or the rash. You could also collect some and process it in your food processor or blender with some aloe vera and make a nice topical gel to use that way. You could also collect quite a bit and dry the leaves and then infuse like a coconut oil or an almond oil or something and make a nice skin lotion. Another medicinal use of the common plantain was to take the leaves, either fresh or dried, and brew a tea that would then be used as a remedy for diarrhea or irritable bowel. It's often been thought that plantain, both the seeds and the leaves, were an important digestive aid. Just remember, if you're going to harvest plantain to eat or to use medicinally, best to avoid areas that have been sprayed by pesticides. You probably don't want to be harvesting it from right alongside the road or areas where your pet's been visiting. And always wash it thoroughly before you use it. Well, that concludes this episode of Backyard Botany. I hope you've learned a little bit about this common plant and you have a greater appreciation for those everyday plants that are all around you in your own backyard. get out there and explore your backyard. See what interesting plants you can find. If you'd like to see some other backyard botany videos or some other interesting virtual programs by Tennessee State Parks, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for Tennessee State Parks Interpretation. Anyway, again, my name is Meg, and thanks for tuning in.